Support for the Couples Council comes from Mercier Wellness and Consulting. Their purpose is to equip you with the right skills for a happy and healthy relationship. Services available in office or virtual. Schedule your consultations now. For more information, visit mercierwellness.com. Mercier Wellness and Consulting. Small steps, big changes.
This podcast is not a substitute for therapy. Please consult a licensed professional for your mental health needs. Now on with the show.
Hello and welcome to the Couples Council. I'm your host, Dr. Jameson Mercier. As always, here with my awesome co-host, assistant, the one and only Herdyne Mercier.
Thank you, honey. That would be me. Welcome to the Couples Council. I'm so excited. It's episode number 7.
Yep. We're still here, and so are you. So as long as you keep coming back, so will we.
Yes.
Now, you're in for a special treat because today's episode is something we found in the archives.
Yes.
Some of you may know that before we had a podcast, we were doing some lives on Facebook and had some videos on YouTube. And so what we're going to do is share that with you guys.
There were so many nuggets in this one. Just the intimate conversation between you and I about being with your spouse and you're living in the shadow, or you feel like you're in the shadow of your spouse. And what does that mean? What does it look like? How do you overcome it?
Yeah, we got a lot of good feedback about that one when we initially did it. And we think it's something that you would benefit from.
And so, without further ado, episode number 7, Living in the Shadow.
Enjoy. Living in the shadows of your spouse. It can be hard. It can also be unexpected. If you're running a business, what's that? Your book? If you're running a business, or maybe your spouse just has a dominant personality. Some would say maybe even a controlling personality, right? It can be hard. It can be a situation where you don't make very many decisions, or decisions are made for you, right? So when we often hear of people not making decisions, sometimes we can automatically assume that the partner making the decision is controlling. But it may also simply be that they just defer to the other and he or she makes decisions, which is another point we want to highlight. It isn't always that a wife is the one living in the shadows of her husband, but it could be that the husband also lives in the shadow of his wife. Okay? A famous example, some might disagree, debatable, is like Oprah and Stedman, right? But they've worked it out. Okay? It can be different things for different situations, for different couples, right? Yeah. One example of living in the shadows is not the same necessarily for another. Okay? Anything you want to add to that?
I think oftentimes for me as a wife, like I don't remember doing my bridal shower. My advice wasn't, make sure you take time for you. My advice was make sure you clean. Make sure you love on your husband. Make sure you wear lingerie. Make sure you have babies.
I wasn't there, so I don't know.
And make sure that you know how to cook.
It sounds like good advice to me.
But none of it was preparing me for the transition of becoming one and not losing my identity. Do you get it?
Oh, I get it.
So I didn't, and all of it was great advice. I would agree. But there is something to say that if you're in a relationship and if both of you aren't happy, the marriage will suffer or the relationship will suffer. So you always want to make sure that to your ability, I'm just kind of preaching this, you have to take time for yourself as a wife. And it's not something that we naturally kind of teach, because we probably didn't even see it in our own moms.
Right.
Of them taking personal time for themselves.
Yeah. You don't want to, and see, this is tricky, because what I want to say, what I'm going to say is, you don't want to be overshadowed, you don't want it to be like a wave where you're just covered by your spouse. And it could easily happen that one gets overshadowed, right? One gets almost overpowered almost. Yeah. And when that happens, the needs of the lesser or quiet one, the one who defers, that person's needs gets put by the side.
Yep.
Right? Now, in defense of the one who can be a bit more overbearing, in defense of the one who tends to be the overpowering one, sometimes he or she is totally unaware. And so, like you said, babe, it's really your duty as the wife or the husband, the one in the shadow, to come out of the shadow.
It is. And you won't notice it. Like for me, and I'm going to be candid and honest, we went through a season where Jay was doing 8 years of school and we were having babies. So I was not only had to worry about myself. I probably wasn't even worried about myself. I was worried about him finishing school, being the provider, on top of that, birthing kids. So somewhere along those 8 years, I lost myself. And it wasn't until he graduated and one day I looked in the mirror and I go, now what? Now what do I do? Because I took on the title of being wife
and
mother, birthing kids, and every other title that they told me at our shower, my bridal shower. Make sure you cook, clean, have lots of sex, and enjoy your life. But no one told me anything about make sure you have time for your self-care.
And so, like I said a moment ago, right, it is not always something that the other person is aware of. As far as we were concerned, we are just doing exactly what we want to do. And we were. I mean, it comes with its own stresses. But I did not realize that this was happening to her. Okay? I didn't even
realize it was happening to myself.
She didn't realize it herself. And so a second point, the question that we ask is, how does this happen? Well, the thing is, sometimes it happens and we're totally oblivious to it. Sometimes it happens and, like you said, it's years down the line that
for me, 8 years. Because I got into this like triangle of wake up, survive the day, sleep. Wake up, survive the day, sleep. Wake up, survive the day, sleep. And I did that for 8 years. And it wasn't until he was done with his PhD that I kind of like, we survived it. Like, we really survived it. But now what? Okay, where's my career? What am I going to do next? And so you begin to like, okay, I birthed all these kids. Now what? You know? Because I went into that stage. My main stage was being the provider, because Jay was a stay-at-home dad for 2 or 3 years of that time.
Well, a good 3 years, 2.5 years.
Yeah. So I was bringing home the bacon. We're going through that just to make sure he was successful on his school-wise space, I guess. So.
And so, how does it happen? It creeps up on you, right? So let me say this. There's 2 ways that it happens, right? Either one, you have a spouse who's controlling and domineering, and they're just like, you ain't going to do a damn thing. And that's a different topic.
That's a different topic for another day.
Or you all just kind of get into this groove. You get into this mode. And in our case, it was almost like by default, because we needed to survive, that all of our resources, all of any time we had, any money we had, was all being diverted to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me was something we agreed on.
Yeah.
Okay? And so everything is just focused on me and what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. And
my thing is, how can I serve? How can I serve? How can I serve to make sure that you're successful? And if I were to change anything about that 8-year process, I would change, make sure I stop and do me. Even if it's 15 minutes, an hour, a week, just get away, get a pedicure, recharge, do my own spiritual thing or my own spiritual growth, do all of those things to make sure that I filled my cup.
yeah. Now, it's tricky.
Mm-hmm.
While we're going through this, as far as I'm concerned, she's doing and being everything she wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that was the image that you were given off.
But that's what I was taught.
Right. So from my vantage point,
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at my wife doing everything she says she want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Wife and mother and homemaker. Even when she was working, and I'm saying, well, hell, everything should be great because you're doing everything you want to do.
Uh-huh.
But there comes a point where there becomes some frustration and some even anger potentially.
Resentment.
Mm-hmm. And that's when you realize you have a problem.
Yeah.
Right? That's when you realize, like Herdyne said, what am I doing? Who am I in this situation here?
Have you ever felt like you were in the shadow of your spouse? Am I not? I know I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine like in different industries.
Yeah.
If someone is married to an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
If you're an athlete, your spouse is definitely in your shadow.
Yeah.
If you're a musician
Mm-hmm.
or performer of any sort,
Mm-hmm.
your spouse is in your shadow. And you know what? Sometimes it can be tempting to say, well, listen, that's what you do. I need to find my own thing to do. And now it can almost be like competing.
Yeah. You got to be careful with that.
Yeah, just because you don't want to be in the shadows.
Uh-huh.
But I would imagine it's actually quite common.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you are a very traditional or conservative person, you'll say, well, that's how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
call it teamwork.
Call it teamwork.
I would call it teamwork as well, but you gotta be careful because in teamwork, some project is always gonna overpower the next teammate's vision or plan. So there has to be some balance. I called it teamwork. I called it, I'm being the bestwife.com that you can think of. But somewhere 8 years later, I woke up and I looked in the mirror and I'm like, who the hell is Herdyne Mercier?
Yeah. Even in a team, right? Even in a team, it's possible for you to kind of lose sight of yourself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make you a bad spouse.
Mm-hmm.
If we use the NBA, for example, right? Everyone has a role to play. You have your position, and when we come down court, you get in that spot, and we'll pass you the ball, and you do what you got to do. Or you set a screen, set a pick, and we'll do it. We'll make it happen. Now, even though the team might be making progress, you can still feel like, but what about me?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's where it gets tricky because then you'll be like, well, damn, why am I complaining?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're winning.
Yeah.
We're still accomplishing goals.
Mm-hmm.
But yet there's something that we can't quite put our thumbs on. And that's where it gets tricky. And then the idea that people should be this or should be that, it's not an easy thing to work through, which is why a lot of people don't say anything.
Yeah.
Okay, which is why in that process, unless we're checking in regularly, we don't know how the other person is feeling.
And then, if I remember correctly, I didn't know how to identify it. I didn't know how to identify. When I think about my mom, she lived to serve us, and she always denied her needs for us. She's an amazing wife. So I want to be an amazing wife too. So I would deny my needs to make sure my husband's needs and my kids' needs were taken care of. Because in my mind, that is what created a great wife.
Mm-hmm. When I work with wives, I mean, I know you're the wife mentor.
Yes.
But every now and then I have a wife as a client, and wives, there's this unwritten book that wives have been gifted, and it's this manuscript about all the things that a wife should do and should not do.
Yeah.
And when I ask about this book. And they say, well, my mom or my aunt or this person and that person. And I say to myself, burn it. Because what worked for your mother or your aunt or your grandmother is not going to work for you, because you're not married to their husband.
So good. But you know what? I say just like this. When you go on an airplane, the very first thing before they take off, they pull down, they show you the mask, and they say, you cannot save anybody, even if it's your child. And I love my husband. I cannot give him my mask. I have to give myself my mask first. Yep. And so it's very important for us as wives to not always just give. We also have to kind of be a little stingy.
Yeah, self-care ain't selfish.
Yeah.
It's not. And so, what are some solutions for situations like this? One thing we've highlighted, what you said beautifully, is the whole self-care thing. And regularly and intentionally taking care of yourself. You may need to find your own tribe outside of your spouse.
You got that. And I call my tribe the wisdom circle.
It may just be that, you may need to find a circle of women, a group of guys, whether it's online or in your neighborhood, in your community, at church, to be that support for you. You're going to need it.
Yeah.
You're going to need it, because your spouse won't always be available.
And it's a healthy tribe. Or for me, I call it my wisdom circle. It's not a group of women that we come together and we bash our husband. No. It's really a healthy, it's my escape. It's my taking off my mother's hat, taking off my wifey's hat, just for me to lay down, I don't have hair anymore now, but, when my hair was long, kind of flip my hair back, and talk and have great conversation with my girlfriends.
Yeah, for sure. If not with a tribe, time alone. Time alone is vital. Yeah. I personally crave alone time, because all day all I do is talk to people.
Yeah.
From the time I get to my office, whether I'm here or at the school, all I'm doing is talking to people. And when I get a moment or two to sit quietly, that is like heaven.
And I understand that. So I make sure that I'm like, you need to go on a guys trip. You need to go be by yourself. You enjoy camping. When you going camping by yourself?
Stay tuned for some camping videos. Best believe.
And the other thing is that I would say is, like, one of the things I do for the last 2 to 3 years, I go on an annual mom's trip. Just me, myself, and my girls. Yeah. And we'll head out to Bahamas on a cruise 3 or 4 days. No kids, no husband, just me recharging.
And when she goes, it's also a treat for me too.
Yes.
Listen. Who's Karina? Karina says there is a large amount of guilt that comes with finding fulfillment outside of your home. Society tells us that wife and mother should be enough. Karina, society is wrong.
Yeah.
A successful career woman is not something that society is comfortable with. And when I say so, we say society, we're actually, it's a global thing, right? In some parts of the country, the world, women can't even drive, and to drive is a battle, right? Yes, that's the prevailing thought, and I can empathize with you. However, that's something that women are wrestling with everywhere, and that in some ways that could even be a rallying call against society.
Yeah.
You know, because you need it.
You need it.
You need it. Nothing says that you should have to be miserable or only be a wife and mother.
Yeah, I will tell you this much. During the times where Jay was in school, money was tight. I was the only provider, financial provider to the home. And I would deny myself a pedicure. And with that denial came attitude. Because every time I looked at my feet and my feet wasn't done, I was having some attitude with Jay. And not realizing, slowly I thought, I was like, oh my God, this is not what I thought it would be.
Yeah, we said that a lot of times.
Yeah. So I strongly believe you need to go against the grain.
It's okay.
And start to bury some of what society says and create it what your life role means for you. And it changes season by season.
Yeah. You don't have to accept the guilt and the judgment from society.
Yeah.
Right? Just because society says it doesn't mean you have to accept it. The other thing is, so because we've made this agreement, or because this is how it is, don't have it in your head that it's always going to be like that, or it always has to be like that, right? Someone said earlier, you know, it's teamwork, yes, right? So maybe the wife she's overshadowing the husband in this season, right? Or the husband kind of overshadows the wife in this season, but nothing is permanent, right? And so just like there was a time when everything was focused on me and what I was doing and my goals, and Herdyne was just kind of like, well, let me just make sure this happens.
I'm going to hold down this house.
Hold it down, and that's fine. And while I appreciate that, I know there comes a time where she's going to need to do what works for her, and I'm going to have to get in the back seat. And I'm okay with that. But if I put in my mind that this is what it is, or if Herdyne had it in her mind, it's always going to be like this, now we got problems. Because when you look at your relationship and you say to yourself, oh my God, is this the rest of my life? Then you make some really bad decisions. Yeah. You go into this space that is dangerous.
Dark.
It cannot sustain a relationship.
It cannot. Has there been a time in your relationship, if you're feel free to share, where you feel like you were in the shadow? Or is it just more of a woman?
No, well, I'll tell you. The thing that comes to mind for me, when we were planning the wedding, I felt like you was trying to keep me in the shadow.
No, but you were very involved.
Yeah, but not because you made it easy, though.
I just wanted what I wanted.
Exactly.
But you stepped up and you said, okay, I want to be a part of this. It is so you educated me on that. So going back to history, men don't want to be involved. That's what I was taught from the movies I watched.
Right. Thank you, Hollywood. Thank you.
Men don't want to be involved. They just want to show up. So it took me a while for you to stop. When you stopped and had that conversation with me, I was like, oh, you want to be involved?
Ladies, don't get it twisted, right? Men may not be saying anything. Some of them don't care. They just show up. But sometimes it's because y'all just put up that big old fight.
That is like,
and then if I'm fighting with you before I marry you, we got problems. So, but other than that, I can't really think of a time where I felt like I was covered by your shadow.
Okay.
Nothing comes to mind. There was a comment here, right?
Go back up.
David, with her business moving as it is, I am now in her shadow. But in some ways, it is refreshing to be able to do it back in a way as she takes point. Yeah, sit back. Okay.
Okay.
Listen, man, it wasn't always like that. And believe it or not, it won't always be like this either.
Yeah.
It's eye-opening for couples to switch back and forth like that.
Yeah. But it's the dialogue.
Yeah, that's vital.
It's the dialogue that's vital to make sure that you're not living in the shadow of your spouse.
Yeah, because the thing is, the shadow could also be of your own making.
Yes. Yes.
Right? You could be the one walking around with an umbrella creating your own shadow because your spouse may just be doing what he or she thinks is right, and you are the one with the issues. Right? And it is possible that your issues will affect the relationship, but you may have to address these issues on your own.
On your own.
If the marriage is going to be sustainable. So, I mean, those are some takeaways. So the dialogue is important. Self-care is important.
Yes.
Possibly finding your own tribe or your own support. You know, it's funny.
Positive support.
Absolutely. Positive support. Totally.
Yeah.
That goes without saying. When I was doing my PhD program, I had to... I linked up with the Bowen Club, right? Shouts out to the Bowen Clubs, right? The Bowenians out there. If it were not for those people, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
And in addition to Bowen Club, for a while I had some running buddies. And I would go to the beach and I would just run. You know, some days we'd run 8, 10, 12 miles.
And you had these different pockets because then you had the girls from the PhD program.
Yes.
You had that. So you had and where I wasn't having, I was wearing my mommy hat. I was wearing my provider hat.
I couldn't do that with you.
No. Certain things you couldn't do with me because I was in and out. I was in that triangle where I tell you I woke up, I survived the day, and I slept.
Yeah.
And I would poke out just a few, hey, you okay? Good. You want to do this? Yeah. And then I go back in that survivor mode.
I'm telling you, it's, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? There were times when we tried to have certain conversations, do certain things, but you were so in those roles, mom and wife, that there was nothing left. And I could either force it or just be like, okay, you know, but talking through it, working through it
is what
makes it work, you know. So be careful that you're not casting your own shadow or blocking out the light and then blaming your spouse.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Because if this is something that you and your partner, your spouse have agreed on, that you're going to do for the relationship, for the marriage, for the household, that's a we decision.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't crucify her or crucify him for doing something we agreed that we would do.
And so that was a previous Facebook Live recording. Listening to it does bring back some of the stuff that we talk about here. And when we came across it, we figured, hey, you know, we're not going to keep this to ourselves. We're going to share it with you guys.
Because sharing is caring. And we love to share because I believe in sharing. And not just sharing, but sharing our own personal experiences. We're able to say, hey, this was an example. We weren't on the same page. We didn't see eye to eye. It was a little rocky, but we survived it. I think this is the whole premise behind the couples council is you will find that we're sharing stuff. We're giving advice to let you know you can survive whatever you're going through in your marriage.
Yeah, but by no means are we perfect. We just keep trying and keep working and keep putting into play some of the skills that we know, some of the strategies that we have, hoping that you will also follow.
That's true. Because I think love is perfect, but the individuals involved aren't.
True that. And so let us know what you thought of this episode.
by checking us out at Dr. Jameson Mercier on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, letting us know what you think. We really want to hear from you. Leave the 5 stars. Those are great.
Yep.
Leave your reviews. We really do get tickled. I really do get tickled reading your reviews, because it's not easy coming on this mic, sharing our own personal stories sometimes with the world. And we want to hear from you. They actually do encourage us. So leave your reviews. You can check us out at Dr. Jameson Mercier, or you can check out The Wife Mentor. Come in our DMs. Let us know what you think. Tag us out loud. Tag us in your stories. We do want to really hear from you.
And you can also find everything you need at mercierwellness.com. Once again, thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Hey everybody! Thank you for listening to our mom and dad.
If you like them as much as we do, then click subscribe and leave a comment. But now they have to go because it's family time.
So go practice what you heard, and we'll catch you on the next episode.